Well, we've reached our last chapter, dear students, and this chapter combines retirement planning and estate planning. So we'll spend the first presentation discussing retirement planning, which in some ways will be a bit of a review and recap of some themes that have gone through the entire class. We'll then have a quick presentation on a fun topic, the baby boomer generational time bomb, which sounds kind of scary, but in reality isn't as bad as people make it out to be. And then we'll have our last presentation on the last and final chapter of life. And that's death. Ooh. Estate planning. We don't call it death planning, we call it estate planning. But let's turn our attention now to retirement planning. By 2030, 76 million baby boomers will have retired, but only 46 million Gen Xers will have come up to replace them. What's going on? Well, we'll see. We'll see in our second presentation. But right now, let's take a look at an oft-heard lament of senior citizens. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have done things a whole lot differently. Exactly. Yeah, you know what I'm going to... You already know what I'm going to tell you to do, right? But let's do it anyway. Slide number 2. Why should you think about retirement planning now? I'm talking to you, millennials, in your early 20s or maybe even earlier. Well, what's happening? People are spending more years, 16 to 20 years in retirement. Sound like a test question? Yeah, 16 to 20 years in retirement. It used to be 2 or 3. Right, people used to retire at 62 and die at 64. Or retire at 65 and die at 67. Or maybe not even make it to 65. But that was 70 years ago, folks. People are living far longer now. And so we have to prepare. It's a great problem to have, isn't it? I think so. It's a great problem to have. A private pension plan and Social Security are most often insufficient to cover the cost of living. And people are saying, what private pension plan? They're all disappearing and being replaced by defined contribution plans. But the news, as we'll discuss, is not so bad. It's not so bad. Inflation may, the book says, no. Inflation will diminish the purchasing power of your retirement savings. Inflation doesn't retire when you retire. It's a given. And over the last 80 some odd years, it's been 2-3%. So there are times when it goes up higher than that. Most notably the 70s and into the very early 80s. But for the most part, that's what it's been. And it will diminish your purchasing power. If we continue at 3% in about 25 years, remember the rule of 72? Prices will have doubled. Slide number 3. How do you estimate your retirement living expenses? Well, it's not easy. It really is not easy. And most people find that they were way off. They either thought they needed more than they really need, or they found out they needed a lot less than they thought they were going to need. Spending patterns will change. Some expenses may go down or stop. Work, clothing, housing, income taxes. But other expenses will probably go up, such as medical or leisure. And in some families, it's just given. It's just expected that the grandparents are going to be giving gifts and contributions and possibly paying for private school. I'm glad I don't have that in my family. For the grandchildren, paying for private school for the grandchildren. Inflation will raise the amount you need to cover your expenses over your probable how many years? 16 to 20 or more years in retirement. The tricky wild card, in my humble opinion, is healthcare. It is the only thing that truly scares yours truly, and with respect to my wife and my retirement. That's the only thing that really scares me is healthcare, because As we discovered in Chapter 9, it's out of control, and any kind of bipartisan attempts to solve the healthcare crisis have been so far totally destroyed by partisanship. So we'll see. That's what scares me. Everything else I got covered. Thank you very much. Slide number 4. Here is the Bureau of Labor Statistics take on the average, whatever that is, how older, 65 and up, household and how it spends its money. And this to me is a real tragedy, that the average elderly person spends about a third on housing. That's what you should be spending while you're working, not when you're not working. And if you've purchased a house and paid down the debt, this should go way down. Now, there are always going to be costs to housing, folks. I mean, you don't live free. But if you can pay that mortgage down, maybe, as we showed in Chapter 7, pay it a little bit faster than 30 years, you should have that housing down. I think this one, medical, is going to be higher because we're living longer. And do you remember the statistic? People from ages 60 to 70 use more healthcare services, more healthcare dollars than they did from age 0 to 59. Food and entertainment and insurance and contributions and transportation. Now here's another thing that to me seems a little too much for retirement. You don't need a car. You certainly don't need 2 cars. And who knows what will happen with these driverless cars. Someday you won't want a car. You will just log in and say, I need a car at this time to take me here. The thing will show up without a driver. You'll pop in and it'll take you to where you want to go, and then it'll go off and do it for somebody else. I think it's going to be a winner. We'll see. But I tease my wife and say, wouldn't you like to sell your car in retirement? And she goes, you can sell your car. So I did. And we share. Actually, we have another vehicle that's mostly used for carting stuff around, and we'll use that when we need to cart ourselves around. But it's a minivan that we use to cart stuff around. Slide number 5: planning your retirement housing. Where are you going to live? Consider the cost of living. Consider the taxes. But the truth is, dear students, that most people, 6 out of 7, will prefer to remain in their homes. Because after 30 years, it's not just a house, it's your home. You might have raised your kids there. Yes, so it's not someplace that people normally want to leave. Some people will, but 6 out of 7 will remain in their homes. And a reverse mortgage, which we talked a little bit about in Chapter 7. Be careful. These things are potential landmines because they love to prey on the elderly. But these things can help people live in their homes for the remainder of their life, because the reverse mortgage, unlike a regular mortgage, cannot be foreclosed upon. So they can't kick you out. If you choose to leave, they're going to want to be paid, so you're going to have to sell the house, or sometimes the heirs, the children or the grandchildren, will refinance so they can keep the house. But you cannot be kicked out while you're still alive. And if you do choose to go to a continuing care retirement community, you will find that these things have gotten very good, folks. They're really amazing. You get a little apartment. Sometimes they're not a little. Sometimes they're very spacious. And you don't have to go to the community gathering where they have dinner, and you can do your own laundry, you can do your own cleaning, or as your needs increase, you can have food brought to you, or go to the common area for meals and social gatherings and entertainment, and then you can hire staff to help you clean and do your laundry. So they're amazing. We were involved with one with my mother-in-law, and I was impressed. Now, here's something that I have talked with people in the past and done my best to try to convince them, because once you leave San Diego, if you sell your place, it's going to be really hard for you to get back in. So if you do want to relocate, my advice is to research carefully and rent your home for at least a year, maybe 2. Because if you sell the home in San Diego, it will be very difficult no matter where you go, unless you go someplace more expensive like the Bay Area or New York. But no, it's going to be very difficult for you to come back. So my advice would be to rent for a year or 2. And more Americans are retiring abroad. Costa Rica, anyone? Well, careful. You think you're not going to have to pay your income taxes, but that's not true. Unless you renounce your citizenship, you're going to have to pay your income taxes. You don't have to pay state income taxes anymore. Healthcare is a serious issue. And if you do not pay into Medicare while you're gone, which makes sense, I'm not using it, right? I'm out of the country. But then if you come back and say you're going to, I want to join Medicare now, no. They're going to make you go back and pay as if you had been in the system, right? They're not going to say, it's great, you go ahead and go have fun while you're still healthy, and then you come back when you're sick. No, we're not going to play that game. So you have to be careful. Talk with the Social Security, talk with the Medicare expert, at the agency. I met several people in Morelia, Mexico, which is a beautiful Mexican city. It looks like Europe. It's absolutely gorgeous, and most Americans have never heard about it, who were living off of their Social Security alone very comfortably in Morelia. And they were buying the Mexican health insurance. At least one was. I forget what the other person did. I asked him, because I'm very interested whenever I hear people saying that they've retired abroad. I want to know how it's going. Costa Rica is very popular. Ecuador is popular. Many go to the Philippines. What's the Baguio? Baguio is the place where there's lots of expats there living there. Thailand. So certain places in Europe. Most of Europe is very expensive, but some places are not. And so think about it. Slide number 6. Social Security. Folks, when they ask millennials if they believe whether or not they will see a Social Security check or whether or not they will see an alien in their lifetime, more millennials believe they will see an alien spacecraft, UFO, in their lifetime than a Social Security check. And this is unfortunate because, Social Security is not perfect. Nothing we humans ever have. But it's been darn good. Here's the problem with Social Security. When it was designed, it was never meant to be the sole source of retirement income. They called it one leg of a 3 or 4-legged stool. They still wanted people to own a home, real estate. They wanted people to save for retirement and have a pension plan. And yet, somewhere along the line, people got it in their little heads that, no, I don't have to worry about retirement. I got Social Security. And now we're at the point where it's been badmouthed so much that people say it's not going to be around. Well, that's ridiculous. It will be around. It will change. It will have to change. But we've faced problems before and we'll fix them. And that more about this when we get to the next presentation about the baby boom generation and its retirement. So full benefits were originally at age 65, but they've moved up for younger folks to 67. And you can get an earnings and benefits statement. Once you turn a certain age, they send it to you, and you can always go online and ask for them to send it to you. And so don't worry, folks. Social Security will be around, but it is not your sole source. In fact, you should consider it a minor part, no more than 15-20%. You'll see that the Social Security Administration recommends about a quarter, 25, 26%. But you should not count on this as your sole source of income. Okay? All right. Slide 7. When it was originally designed and started back in the late 30s, the full benefits were accrued at 65. And then when you were born at 68, then you see it going up to 65 years and 2 months, 4 months. And then until finally 1960, you have to wait until 67 to be fully vested. Now, does that mean you have to wait until 67 years of age to actually take your Social Security? No. You can take it at 62, but it will be reduced substantially. Well, that makes sense. It's an actuarial calculation. In many ways, folks, it's like an annuity. Remember we discussed annuities? It's like an annuity. The Social Security Administration looks at how long you're going to live. Well, actually, it was the Congress that mandated these, and I'm sure they had plenty of help from the folks at Social Security. But if you take the money early, 62 or before the year you become fully vested, you're going to take a hit. Every year after that, if you hang on, your amount will go up 8% a year, which is a tidy little sum until you hit 70, and then it doesn't make sense for you to not take it anymore because it doesn't go up anymore. And you'll hear countless arguments, people yelling back and forth at one another whether you should take it early or take it late, and it's a very, very difficult decision, and it's totally dependent upon your situation. I have helped people with this, and what I do is create a little spreadsheet that shows people how long they have to wait to catch up. If they start taking it at 62 versus 65, how long would you have to wait if you started taking it at 65 before it caught up to what you were making with 62? And sometimes it's not until you're 80 or 78 or 84, and people say, well, I'll take it now. Or they say, no, I'm going to hang on. A lot of it depends on you. All of it depends on you. Everyone is different. Slide number 8. Now, I want you to write these two phrases down because people can't remember them. I know they're not the best phrases. Defined benefit, and the next slide is defined contribution. Okay, so write those two. I write them on the board in the face-to-face class because I want people to remember them. Many people call the defined benefit plan a traditional benefit plan or a traditional pension plan. And this is what most employers used to offer their employees. The employer will pay you a certain amount per month when you retire based on your pre-retirement salary, how long you've worked, and your age. When I first started teaching at Southwestern, I was only going to be there for 1 semester. It was a temporary position. And they give you all the packages, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm looking at the State Teachers Retirement System, CalSTRS, and my pay, I took a 20% pay cut, but I figured, what the hell, 1 semester, what are they going to do, fire me? I didn't know what I was doing. And and I'm looking at this State Teachers Retirement System, and I'm thinking, this is not bad. This is not bad. This is pretty darn good. And the idea, this was a long time ago, folks, was that, yes, you are earning less money than your private employee counterparts. That's why we're offering you a good pension, because you're not going to have the same opportunity to build up your nest egg that somebody who's making quite a bit more than you are. And so that was one, not the only, but that was one of the decisions, one of the factors in my decision. The major factor is I just love to teach. I just absolutely love it. I can't imagine not doing it, even though I have my hands in other things out in the industry. I think that's important, but my true love is teaching. And so I thank you, Southwestern Community College and CalSTRS. Now, what has happened? Right, it's become a political a football, because many of the pension plans that were, and some of them were much more generous than the public pension plans, they're going away. The employers don't want them anymore. And so now the private employees have pension envy. They say, why should the public employees have this good pension? And it's a question that needs to be raised and discussed intelligently. It won't be, don't worry. And why are employers getting rid of these things? Well, for the very same reason we talked about a few slides ago, why you need to start thinking now. Because people are living longer. It's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem that we have to deal with. With these traditional pension plans, these defined benefit plans, the employer made the decisions for you and their contributions. So you make contributions, they make contributions, but no matter what happens to the investments, the benefit stayed the same. Unless the fund goes belly up, which some did. For some of them, it was because the company they literally raided the pension plans and then went bankrupt and said, sorry, we're bankrupt. So there's a lot of hanky-panky in this industry. I apologize. But Social Security is an example of a defined benefit plan. It is based on how much money you make, how long you worked, and your years when you retire. Now, the other one that is becoming much more popular is defined contribution plan. And I want you to remember that. They're also called employer pension plans. And although 401k plan is just one of many types of employer pension plans, it's certainly the one that gets the most press, gets the most notoriety, and they have become very popular. And why? Because as we said, the employers are just very reticent to take on an employee as a retiree who might live 30 some odd years or more. So who are they putting the onus on to save for your retirement? You! With money purchase pension plans, with stock bonus plans, with profit sharing plans, and the one that we just said is gaining the most popularity, the 401ks, the 403bs. And why are they called 401k, 457, 403b, 401a? These are sections of the Internal Revenue Code that allow an employer to set up this plan. And if you do what you're supposed to do and your employer does what they're supposed to do, the IRS blesses and kisses, Domini, Domini, Sanctus, Sanctus, Spiritus. You don't have to pay taxes until you retire. They are tax deferred. And they allow the employer to make non-taxable contributions called the match. The truth is, dear students, as we've tried to show you over and over again, if you start early, if you are consistent, if you are prudent, and you don't panic, you have the opportunity to have an income that far exceeds anything the pension plan's ever going to pay you. The opportunity for tremendous success in retirement is there. Right. You know what I'm going to say next. The opportunity for screwing up royally is also there. Because if you don't contribute, or if you contribute a little bit and think, oh, okay, I don't have to worry, or if you do what a lot of people do and wait till the market goes way up and then put all their money on red number 7, the aggressive growth fund, and then the market falls 50% and they lick their wounds and pull it out and put it back in the money market account, only to watch the market turn around and go up 70%. In other words, you are responsible. And there are going to be some serious winners and there's going to be some serious losers. And it is my sincerest desire that you are amongst the greatest of the winners. Stick with us, kids. We'll show you how. We already did. I hope. And if you always ask me. You can always ask me more questions. But by going through chapters 11, 12, and 13, and the alternative, the real estate, you can set yourself up pretty darn well, providing the world doesn't end. So we go to the IRS and we say, IRS 401k, 403b, those are really dumb names. can't you come up with a better name? And they say, oh, yes, we call them salary reduction plans. You gotta love the folks at the IRS. That's what I want. I want my salary reduced. All these things are tax deferred, or at least used to be, until the option, which we often call the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. That's not their real names. There is a Roth IRA. That is in the law. But there's no Roth 401k in the law. That's just what everybody calls them because they operate like a Roth IRA, which we'll describe this in detail later on. But those are after-tax contributions, and they're pretty cool, and we'll discuss those in a moment. So, how do you estimate your retirement living income? It ain't easy. It ain't easy. Every financial website now has these retirement calculators, and really all they are, folks, are marketing tools. You type in all this in. No, that's not true. Some of them are actually quite good. These two, the American Funds and the T. Rowe Price, are pretty darn good. Vanguard's is good. Fidelity's, I've tried that one. That's okay. I thought it was good. I like American T. Rowe Price better. But remember, everybody's different. And what they do is they ask you all these questions, and you put in your numbers, and you tell them what you think you're going to have to spend in retirement, and it comes back and says you're not saving enough. Here, talk to one of our representatives. But no, try them, see if they help. The problem here is, folks, is not only are there a lot of variables about how much you're going to spend, health and the like, you don't know how long you're going to live. You just don't know, and that's why those traditional pension plans and those annuities are just so tempting because you can't outlive the income. It doesn't matter in the case of the annuities that they're going to give you a lousy income. They just love that guarantee from the insurance company. So we have the longevity calculator that we saw back in chapter 10, right? How long do you think you're going to live? You don't know. And as we said, Social Security starts sending you these estimated benefits at age 60, but you can request one at any time. So let's now turn our attention to the types of retirement accounts, and we're going to do a little bit of review, but go more into depth, because back in chapter 11 we described the difference between a taxable and a tax qualified account. So we're going to take a look at those yet again. There are two major types. Sounds like a test question. Pre-tax and post-tax. The pre-tax are the older ones. And those are the 401ks, the 403bs, the 457s, the 401as, the TSP for the Federal Employees Thrift Savings Plan, a very good 401k, by the way. The traditional IRA used to just be called an IRA, but now it's called the traditional IRA, so to differentiate it from the Roth IRA, which was named after a guy named William Roth. A SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a KEO for self-employed people. They all basically work the same way, although there are differences between them. You get a tax break now. You get to deduct the contributions from your income tax. The money grows tax deferred, meaning you don't have to pay any taxes on it until you retire, and then you're taxed in retirement. Starting in 1998, the Roth IRA came along. And then in 2006, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b came along. But your company does not have to offer it. They don't have to offer it. And how does this work? Well, it's the opposite. Instead of getting a tax break now, you get a tax break later in retirement. Very cool. Yes, very cool. And we will take a look at that in detail. But first, let's review this slide. Does this look familiar? Indeed, right. We discussed this in chapter 11. Taxable accounts have no limits on the types of investments. Now, I crossed out the ones I think you should stay far away from, folks. But that doesn't mean you will. You can if you want. If you're that so inclined, go right ahead and do options. I wish you a lot of luck. And there's no limit on the amount of money you can put in. And every year, if you make money, you're going to get a 1099, which says to the IRS, okay, I made X amount in dividends, X amount in interest, X amount in capital gains. And if it's real estate, rent, exactly. So you pay taxes every year. The retirement accounts are tax qualified accounts. Tax qualified is what the IRS calls them. And the Congress limits the types of retirement investments you can put in there. Why? Because they don't want you gambling with your retirement. Stocks and stock mutual funds are risky enough, dear students, right? And so are some bonds. But they don't want you to play fast and loose with futures, options, shorting, things that are just really, really scary. They also put strict limitations on your contributions. And if you remember back in Chapter 3, I asked you to do a little research, and we'll give you the numbers again if you don't remember. They don't want people putting $1 million into these things. Sometimes in an exam I'll say, or in an assignment, what would you do with $100,000? I put it in my Roth IRA. No, you won't. Okay, don't do that. Because first of all, the company will kick it back and say, sorry, we our business rules say we can't do this. And if you are successful, the IRS will eventually. It'll take them a long time, folks. They work slowly. They'll send you a friendly little letter, official business only, saying you goofed. You got to take a bunch of that money out now, and if you don't, we're going to penalize you 6% every year you leave it in. And so, if you do what you're supposed to do, only invest in the things that are allowed, only invest a certain amount every year, the IRS is going to allow you to defer those taxes. You can usually take the contributions and write them off your taxes, give you a tax break now, not have to pay taxes every year until you retire. In the case of the Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b, you don't get a tax break now, but it's tax-free. Very cool. So now let us concentrate, let us focus in on the various different types of retirement accounts and their characteristics. And we'll start with the IRA, the Individual Retirement Arrangement. Is that what it's really called? Yeah, that is the correct name, but nobody except the IRS uses it. Everybody else calls it an individual retirement account. And it is the most popular personal retirement account. It is now normally called the traditional IRA. And why? That's to differentiate it from the Roth IRA, which is it's the exact opposite of how a traditional IRA works. Anyone with earned income can contribute to a traditional IRA. There's some bit of confusion because people think, oh no, you make too much money. No, it doesn't matter how much you make. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the little wrinkle that gets people confused. If you have a retirement plan at work and you make over a certain amount that goes up with inflation depending on whether you're single or married, you may not be able to deduct the contributions, but you can still contribute. And that makes for a little strange situation. You'll have some money that is pre-tax and some money that is post-tax. And so the problem with that is you have to keep track of that because when you go to take the money out, the IRS is going to say, you have to pay taxes on all the pre-tax money, all the money that was sheltered, deferred from taxes. But if you don't know how much you contributed that was post-tax, the IRS is going to say you're going to have to pay taxes on all of it. They call it the basis, which I think is a horrible name, but that's what they call it. So you have to keep track of that. So for that reason, I don't normally recommend people make non-deductible contributions to their IRA unless they want to turn around and convert it to a Roth. I know it's getting tricky already, isn't it? Later, we'll discuss that later. Now, the contribution limits increase with inflation. Currently, in 2017, they're $5,500, and you have until April 15th of the next year to actually contribute for this year. So you have until April 15th of 2018 to contribute for 2017. And the contribution limits are the same for the Roth IRA, which we'll discuss the Roth later on. If you're 50 or over, you can put in an extra extra $1,000. And I don't know if you remember, but that's one of the things I asked you way back in Chapter 3, not because I wanted you to remember it. I mean, I hope some of you did, but more, I wanted you to just get a feel for what it's like to go search for information on the IRS website. Your investment grows tax deferred, which is usually always very cool, folks. People sometimes say, no, yeah, I think it's great. So you pay taxes in retirement, but that's okay because you're usually in a lower tax bracket. And you can start taking the money out without any penalty at age 59 and a half. Actually, there's a way to take it out earlier without penalty, but we won't get into that. You tell, let's do it real quick. You tell the IRS, hey, I want to retire at 56. And they say, okay, this is how much money you have to take for 5 years. You have to take this money out until you're 60. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 60. Mandatory withdrawals begin at age 70 and a half, which means you have to start taking the money out. And if you don't, the penalties are incredibly severe. I don't know why the government does this. I mean, I think they're trying to dissuade people from saying, oh, I'll leave it to my children. Come on, take it out. Have a good time. I don't know. Ask the Congress why they did it. And the IRA has many, many cousins. Slide 14. The 401k, the 403b, the 457. Some of you work in the government, in the federal government, or maybe in the military. You have what's called a TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, which is actually a very good 401k. It's not technically a 401k because it doesn't come under the 401k section of the Internal Revenue Code. It has its own section in the Internal Revenue Code, but it works very similarly. And we use it in Business 123 as an assignment because it is such a good 401k that we have students research it. The limit for 401ks, 403bs, and the like is $18,000 a year. Yeah, well, who's going to put that much money away? Well, let's say you're married and you could live off of one person's salary. You could take the other person's salary and put that into a 401k, put the entire $18,000 limit. It'll lower your taxes substantially. You do that for 5 years when you're in your 20s or 30s. You will never have to touch your retirement account again. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I mean, you'll have plenty of time to just watch that nest egg grow, assuming you invest prudently and consistently with an eye toward long-term growth. I sound like a parrot. If you're 50 or over, you get to put an extra $6,000. That's $24,000. That's pretty darn good. The SEP IRA is mostly for self-employed people and small businesses. Same thing is true for the Simple IRA. I'm a big fan of the Simple for small businesses. There's various reasons. The SEP can work very well if you don't have any employees. If you have employees, the SEP can be very expensive for the business. But the Simple is dirt cheap. The limits are a little bit less than the 401k, but the paperwork is so much less daunting. A simple 401k is normally for a self-employed person, normally without any employees. The KEO. I don't even think people use this one anymore. I just love the name. KEO. It's like a simple IRA, a SEP IRA, but the name is so cool. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. Remember the end? Remember the end of Wizard of Oz? Where not quite the end, but they're in the witch's castle, and the guards are going yo hee yo, KEO. Well, you know, it's a sickness, folks. I can't help it. It's amazing where my mind goes when I let it wander. Now, all those work basically the same until you get to the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA has the same limits as the traditional IRA, and people confuse the two, but they work very differently. Instead of getting a tax break now, you get a tax break later. You pay taxes on the contributions now, but in retirement, all the money that you put in is tax-free. Well, that makes sense. You already paid taxes on that. But all the earnings and all the earnings that earned earnings on the earnings. Right. Roth IRA is very cool. And now, if your employer allows it, they don't have to. they can offer a 401k and 403b that has the same provision. Now, we call it a Roth 401k or Roth 403b, but that's not what the IRS calls it. They just call it a 401k or a 403b with after-tax contributions. But it has the same problem as the traditional IRA with non-deductible contributions. You have to keep track of how much money was post-tax, how much money was pre-tax. Right, because when you go to take the money out, you don't want the IRS saying it's all pre-tax and getting taxed twice. Slide number 15. So let's see how this works. So slide number 15. Let's follow this. You have a 401k, a 403b at work. You contribute via your paycheck. Now, that's the thing about a 401k, 403b. It has to be through your paycheck. You put in $100. Well, depending on your marginal tax bracket, something you hoped you could forget about, but no, it keeps coming back, the feds and the state of California are going to give you a subsidy. They're going to help you, folks. They're going to help you save for retirement. Your federal tax withholding would be lowered by $25 if you were in the 25% tax bracket. And let's say you're in the 8% California bracket. We don't know because the brackets don't match. So California has, I think, 3 brackets where the feds only have 1. But say you're in the 8% California bracket. That means the government subsidy of your retirement is going to be $33. Now, are they going to write you a check for $33? No. What's going to happen is they're going to take 33 fewer dollars out of your paycheck. Do you see how that works? It reduces your taxes. Your take-home pay is only reduced by $67. See, you look at your pay stub, you look at your paycheck, and you see that you put $100 into the account, and you only see 67 fewer dollars in your paycheck. Pretty cool, huh? And we didn't even mention if your company matches. Some companies you put in $100, they'll give you 50 or 100. Now, why are they doing that? Think about it. What did we just say? What did we talk about several slides ago? The traditional pension plans are going away. What we call the defined benefit plans. Right. They want you to go away. You go away. You take your defined contribution plan, 401k, 403b. You take it and you go away. So we're happy to give you $50 so that you'll go away later on. Sound cool? Yeah, well, 403bs very rarely match, but 401ks often do match, and that is free money. Who is going to give you 50% on your dollar in one day? Or maybe 100%. Some are 25%. You don't see that too often. And some don't match at all, like Southwestern Community College. So check that out. Now, the whole $100 goes into the account. Very cool, right? All right, Payano. What's the catch? Right, there's always a catch. Right? Well, not really, folks. You pay income tax on any amounts withdrawn in retirement, as we've mentioned, but people in retirement are usually in a lower tax bracket. So that makes sense, right? You're going to be earning less money. If you're not in a lower tax bracket, congratulations. Because that means you're taking out so much money out of your retirement account that you've bumped up into well, that's not usual, folks. But if it happens, congratulations. And it is my sincerest desire that all my students, all my clients, me too, have this terrible problem in our older years where we're making too much money out of our retirement account. Isn't that a horrible problem to have? Yeah. And, of course, if you withdraw the funds before retirement, what's going to happen? They're going to slap your wrist. You're going to have to pay the income taxes, and you pay a 10% penalty. Now, there are some exceptions to the 10% penalty. First-time home purchase, higher education, medical disability, financial hardship, which is kind of hard to get accepted by the IRS. But there are ways you can get to this money if you need to raid it to buy a home. That's a great reason to raid your retirement account. Higher education? I don't know. So the idea, folks, is that you are giving this money a little kiss, sending it on its way, and it's going to work wonders for you. And remember, this is what your business, your employer used to do for you in the traditional pension plan. Now it's your job. And as we said, you have the potential to create a much better pension plan for yourself than would normally be done through your company. Much better. If you invest consistently, prudently, with an, here I go again, eye toward long-term growth. Don't panic when the markets fall. Instead, think, hey, this is great. My $100 is buying more shares. Yeah, okay, enough. Okay, I sound like a broken record. And some of you don't even know what a broken record sounds like. It sounds like this. It sounds like this. It sounds like this. Okay, slide number 17. All right, so wait. What happens with the Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b? Well, what happens is that everything's reversed. It's the exact opposite. You get a tax break later. Now, nothing. You put in $100 into your Roth IRA. What do you get from the feds? What do you get from the state of California? Nothing. Your disposable income is reduced by $100. So you might think, why contribute to a Roth IRA? Okay. In fact, some people might say, why are you bothering to contribute to a Roth IRA? Huh? Well, here's the answer, folks. Are you ready? Slide 18. Because a Roth IRA is so cool, folks. No other investment choice comes close, in my humble opinion, because tax-free in retirement is a golden opportunity. Now, there are some scenarios that you can run where it would have made sense for you to take. Don't worry. Don't listen to them. And then I think there's some people who are saying, don't trust them. They're promising you, the Congress that is, that it'll be tax-free in retirement. And you know what? They're lying. They're gonna go ahead and tax it. I don't know how that's gonna work out. I mean, people with first of all, older people vote, and they have canes, yeah, and they know how to use them. So the Congress bozos, the Congress representatives, will be hard pressed to tax your Roth investment in retirement. But who knows? You never know. Plus, you can withdraw the contributions at any time with no penalty. Why? Well, you already paid taxes on the contributions. This is for the Roth IRA, not the Roth 401k or 403b. Does that make sense? You've already paid taxes on that contribution. So the IRS says, well, sure, you can take it out at any time. Don't do it. Leave it in there. But this makes the Roth IRA also an excellent intermediate term investment account. Right. Purchase a house, other high ticket item, great for college expenses if you have to rate it. Why? Because when you filled out the FAFSA form, that's what it's called, FAFSA, not FAFSA. That's what some people say. It's the FAFSA form. Did they ask you how much was in your Roth IRA? No. Currently, it is not used in the financial aid calculations. Now, if you go to a private institution, they often will consider a Roth IRA a liquid investment and expect you to withdraw money for that. And so that's why often when people say, should I open up an educational savings account for my child? I say, you know what? Have you funded your Roth IRA yet? And they say, no. I said, do that first. If you can put more than $5,500 in your Roth, congratulations. Go ahead, then put some money in an educational savings account or an account for your child. Because why? Because those accounts, the FAFSA form wants to know how much is in there, and they want you to draw that down before they give you financial aid. So I'm a real big fan of the Roth IRA, dear students. I think everyone should have a Roth IRA. Ahem. Slide number 19. But a Roth IRA is not for everyone. Well, yes, it is. It is. You just have to learn how to navigate the paperwork. You see, but if I put on my broker's hat, we're not supposed to say that everyone should have a Roth IRA, because you have to know your client and make sure that whatever you suggest to your client is a suitable investment for them. And a Roth IRA may not be. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Just no, everyone should have one. The problem is there are limitations on the Roth IRA contributions. Okay, now wait a minute. See if you can follow me here, folks, because this is how broken our tax code is. Only single taxpayers with an adjusted gross income of $118,000 or less in 2017, and married couples with an adjusted gross income of $186,000 or less in tax year 2017 can fully contribute to a Roth IRA. Okay, if you don't qualify, congratulations. I don't feel too bad for you, okay? Don't feel so, but still, no, you don't understand. You can still contribute to the Roth IRA anyway. Huh? It's saying you can't. No, you can. If you find, or that you're going to make over the limit, you simply recharacterize the contributions into a traditional IRA, which does not have the same limitations before you file your taxes. You have until October 15th of the next year. So you can file an extension in April and then actually file it up until October. So you see, that's what the IRS created, that verb, recharacterize, because the traditional IRA doesn't have the same limitations. And then you immediately convert the traditional IRA back into a Roth. I've helped many people do it. You file the paperwork on the exact same day, and boom, it's done. And the IRS says, okay, that's what you did. Oh, I know who voted for these bozos. Oh, yeah, we did. Why would they make it so complicated? I guess they just don't want people to use the Roth IRA. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not that much. I mean, $5,000 is a lot of money for most people, but it's not like you're putting $18,000 there. Okay, so we now know that even though the Roth IRA is not for everyone, it really is for everyone. Tax reform, anyone? Slide number 20. And this is very cool. Very cool. For low-income earners, and I don't know about you, but $62,000 for a married filing jointly, I don't think that's too low. $46,000 for a head of household. They will give you a tax credit, meaning the Congress. You put, say, $600 away, $50 a month into a Roth IRA, you might get $300 back on your taxes. Pretty darn cool. Yeah, it's a maximum of $2,000, but still, it's pretty darn good. So if you do your own taxes, do not forget about this. If you have someone do them, make sure you remind them, I put money away into a 401k or a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. And by the way, the software programs like TurboTax handle this very, very well, because if they didn't, I'm sure a lot of people would be very upset. Now, is the IRS going to call you up and say, hey, Fred, you're eligible for a tax credit because you're a low-income earner and you put money away in your... No, they're not going to do it. So you're the one who has to do it. Slide 21. The Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. Now, we've already mentioned these things. The reason we put them in quotes is because that's not what the IRS calls them, but that's what everybody else calls them. If your employer offers the option, they don't have to, they do not have to, they're not required to, you are able to place after-tax dollars into your 401k, 403b. It works like a Roth IRA. The post-tax contributions don't give you a tax break now, but give you a tremendous tax break later. Now, there's a couple of wrinkles here. Unlike the Roth IRA, you can't take the contributions out before retirement without penalty or taxes. Oh well, it's not that bad. But like the traditional IRA and non-deductible contributions, you have to keep track of your basis. You have to keep track of how much money was post-tax, you already paid taxes on, and how much money was pre-tax, and any contributions that your employer makes are automatically pre-tax. So it gets a little tricky, because if you forget, if you lose the statements, keep track of every last year's statement. And now with sophisticated computer systems, you'd think they would keep them forever, but then of course you change jobs and you lose it or whatever. So you got to keep really good records. Keep the end of year statements every year. File them away. I'm not a big fan of these things. I recommend people to fund their Roth IRA first. But if your company matches your contributions, it's a no-brainer, folks. I mean, that's free money that you don't want to throw away. So if your company matches your contributions, take the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. Even, with the accounting mess that you have to deal with. Just make sure you keep your end of year statements. Slide 22. Okay. What are the anticipated sources of retirement income? Well, remember we said Social Security was never meant to be the right. I don't know where people got this idea that Social Security was going to be everything and everything. No, it's not. It never was designed that way. It was meant to be a third or a quarter of your retirement income. And you see, this is from the Social Security Administration. They're trying to set you straight, and nobody listens to them. But again, the pension, you see that? If you and your IRA, if 401k, if you can invest consistently and prudently, here I go again, prudently with an eye toward long-term growth and the world doesn't end, you're going to do a whole lot better than this silly graph. In fact, in the chapter 14 section of the class website or on Canvas, you will see some illustrations. Now, the first three illustrations we did for chapters 11, 12, 13 were concerned accumulation, building up the nest egg. Whereas this one, or these illustrations, these pair of illustrations, show us drawing it down, taking the money out, the distribution phase. And there are several methods that are used. The rule of thumb is to start with 4%, but everybody's different, and now it's just a rule of thumb. Some people get angry at that. They say it's a terrible rule. I said, no, it's just the beginning. It's just a starting point. You might want to take out less. You might want to take out more. You might not even want to touch it for a few years, depending what's going on in your situation. So that's just one method. And of course, if you have any questions, as I've always said, I can talk about this, finance and investments, a lot longer than most any reasonable person would ever want to listen. So please contact me. Okay? Great. So make sure you know the difference between a defined contribution and defined benefit plan. Make sure you know all the various cousins and siblings and the post-tax and pre-tax. Okay? Because I'm going to ask you on the exam. But more importantly, you are now the guru. You are now the financial expert for your friends and family, right? You can't let them down, right? And when they ask you, where did you learn all this stuff? Right, I wash your back. You help me. You wash my back. Okay. Okay. So now, what do we do next, huh? Our next presentation, we're going to take a little bit of time and discuss a pressing issue in our society. The baby boomer generation, retirement generation time bomb. Let's say it again. The baby boomer generation retirement time bomb. That's right. It's not as bad as it sounds. It really is not as bad as it sounds. We're dealing with it, and the world is not falling down. We'll get through it. And when that baby boom generation, of which I'm a part of, is in the rear view mirror, it's going to be a whole very different world, right? Because the Gen Xers there's far fewer Gen Xers. So the millennials will say, whew, finally got those boomers off our necks. Now we only have to deal with the Gen Xers. And then they'll be the next generation coming up. Okay, so we'll see you in our next presentation.